Roberta McCain, as we sit here in your residence in Northwest Washington, D.C., what are some of your most memorable moments of John McCain when he was a young boy growing up?
I can't think of anything in particular, but he was a very sweet child. And he's just a lot of fun. He's always been nice. And so I don't have anything to really talk about.
But a lot of fun in what way?
Well, he was always the leader among the children. Well, I don't know how to say it. He was just one of those nice children that people like to have around. The neighbors liked him. Everybody liked Johnny.
And you call him Johnny to this day?
Yeah, I should call him John.
Let me go back though to your marriage. You were how old when you and your husband first met?
I was 20, and he had just had his 22nd birthday. Actually, he was born on January the 17th. We were married on January the 21st, and my birthday was February the 7th.
Married where?
Tijuana, Mexico. We eloped.
So what happened?
Well, my mother did not like my going with Jack. And I don't know, you know, people didn't know about the Navy. And I think that the fact that he wasn't from Los Angeles, I don't know why, but my mother objected strenuously. And part of this thing almost was a lark. I can look back now. I just wouldn't have had the nerve to ever tell my mother that I wanted to get married. So that's what we did. But we did have Jack's, I would never have gone by just the two. His father was a captain in the Navy, and we knew that he was going to be in San Diego that weekend, and we'd made arrangements with him. He knew we were coming. So Jack's father went with us, and we were married. And I went back on Monday morning and took all my final examinations. If you remember, in January's exam week.
And your reaction from the family? What was it?
Oh, my mother, to the day she died, she never was reconciled to my marriage. You know, in those days, people were that way. To me, it's unimportant.
How did you first meet him?
Oh, it's so involved, but it was another naval officer that had invited my sister out. And he asked me out, and I didn't go with him exclusively. I went with a lot of other people, but it was a real love affair. It really was.
And what was life like in the Navy at that time?
I loved it. I loved every moment I was in there. I loved everybody I ever met in the Navy. I loved every day I ever spent. To me, the Navy epitomizes everything that's good in America. We have very high standards. We all share. We live on a very low income. It's a wonderful life. If anyone in the Navy told me anything, I would never question it.
And you moved how often?
Oh, a lot. Always in the middle of a school term. But my children moved. I've got some theories. And I've seen very indulged children that have never had a problem or stubbed a toe. And then when things didn't go well, say when they're 25 or 28, they didn't know how to handle it. And I think my children took the bad and the hard things when they were young. And I think they're better people for it.
So John McCain decides to follow in a family tradition in the Navy.
Well, he says he didn't. He said he didn't want to go to the Naval Academy, but I was unaware of that. It was just in our day, if a boy went, if his father was in the Navy, you just went to the Naval Academy. In my mind, it was just automatic. But Johnny had a different view. He said that he wanted to go to Princeton.
So why the Naval Academy?
Because we didn't, I don't know, I guess the assumption was such that he would be going to the Naval Academy, and maybe we didn't give him a choice. I don't know.
Can you describe the relationship between John McCain and his father and
Oh,
John
I've
McCain
never
and
seen
you?
such a relationship. His father and my husband, I've never seen anything like it. We had been married about 5 or 6 months, and I said to him, I said, Jack, you love your father more than you do me, don't you? And he said, yes. And it didn't bother me one bit. In fact, I admired him for it. I have never seen such a tender, understanding relationship. And I've thought about this too. He had a brother 2 years younger and a sister 2 years younger, and they didn't mind one bit. I mean, they never were jealous or anything. They just thought that's the way it should be.
And you're talking about
Jack and his father.
And that's his picture?
That's his picture.
And what about the relationship between your son and your husband?
It's just like any other good relationship. There wasn't that. See, Jack was gone so much. We've not had any problems in our family. You know, they just all loved each other, and we just middle-class people that do the best we can.
Are you a religious family?
Yeah, yes, I'm religious, and St. Margaret's is across the street, and I've been in it twice. I think I consider myself religious, but I'm ashamed to admit that I don't go to church. My husband was very religious. To this extent, he prayed on his knees every morning for 1 hour and every night for 1 hour, and he never missed. I had his prayer books that the paper was just gone, just from his hands and the oil in his hands in his prayer book. And he never said anything about it much.
So John McCain is in the Naval Academy. He then travels to Vietnam. He is shot down. What year did that happen, and where were you?
67.
Where
we
were
were
you?
in London. We were invited to the ambassador from Iran's residence for dinner. Jack was in the shower. Under our bed was one of these telephone calls. It's the direct call to Washington. I never touched it. But he was in the shower and the phone rang, and I picked the phone up, and a friend of ours named Hank Miller, an aviator, said, Roberta, 2 planes were shot down and we didn't see any ejections. So when Jack got out of the shower, I told him. And we went and decided we were not going to say one word at this dinner, and we did go to the dinner. And when we came home, Tom Moore, who was chief of naval operations, called, and he said, we're sure that Johnny's gone. I was taking care of my daughter's 3 children, and I went out to a country house that we had, and a steward came flying out of the house. Oh, Miss McCain, oh, Miss McCain, he's a prisoner of war. Can you believe that that's the best news I ever had in my life? See, it depends on where you're standing, how things affect you.
But what was going through your mind when you heard that he was shot down and presumed to have been killed?
What was going through my mind was Johnny's wife. And we talked on the telephone, of course. And I said to her, I said, Carol, I think Johnny is dead, don't you? And she said, yes. And I said, well, I think we should accept that. The reason I had that attitude is I had seen these POW wives who obviously their husbands were dead, but they wouldn't let go. It was just, to me, it's fish or cut bait. If reality is a reality, don't just accept it. So that was what was going through my mind.
And during the 5.5-year period, did you have any communication with him?
Never. And they told us not to. We never tried to write. We never received anything from him.
How did you know how he was doing? Did you
We
have
didn't,
any information?
except, see, my husband was in charge of the Vietnam War. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, the whole thing. And I think he got a lot of information from the intelligence. I don't know how, I shouldn't say a lot, but he got information.
Do you think the fact that your husband had that position, that there were any negotiations or any deals made to get him out?
I do not think so. But I still think that we were right to be in the Vietnam War. And when they talk about the kind of poo-poo the domino theory, I am thinking of Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam are communist. I'm thinking of the terrible purges that went on in those countries and the thousands of people that they killed. That was a good reason to fight, to try to save those people. Now, don't know anything about war or battles, but I know that I went to Vietnam and Laos, and I think those were gallant people that it just breaks your heart.
So in the early 1970s, the war is coming to an end. Your son comes home. Mm-hmm. What was the first contact you had with him?
I hate to tell you, I never had a television. We were so busy, I never watched television. And we were living in a hotel. Jack had just retired. And someone called up and said that that they were coming off of Vietnam. I turned on the television, and these people came off, and the television stopped, so I turned off the television. I didn't know that between ads, he did come off the second, and I missed it.
Now, one of the stories is that he had a few choice words to say about his captors.
Oh, yes, and I'm ashamed of him. I never would have believed in this world he would ever use language like that, but he did.
Even after all that he had gone through?
This wasn't after he got home. It was the terrible language he used when he was a POW. He says, I'm glad I missed that.
Well, is it true that you told him you're going to come over and wash his mouth
out? Yes, I
did. What did you tell him?
I guess I don't know, I just read it in this magazine, and I was shocked that I just couldn't believe it. And I'm still ashamed of him. I don't ever think that that's proper language.
What's your relationship with him these days? He's a U.S. Senator. He's running for president. He has a family.
I stay out of his life as much as possible. If he has to make a speech or go to something like that, he'll pick me up and we visit on the way. And then when the speech is over, the driver takes him home and then takes me home, we visit. And that's about the extent of it, because I think he knows I don't need to talk to him. I love him and he loves me, so what more do you want?
Why politics? Why did he enter politics?
I think our family has always been interested in politics. Jack is a very minor thing, but he had congressional liaison for the Navy. Strangely enough, after World War I, my father-in-law had congressional liaison. After World War II, my husband had congressional liaison, and after the Vietnam War, Johnny had it, but just for the Navy. You know, he had an uncle named Henry Pinckney McCain, who was adjutant general in World War I, and so he graduated from West Point, obviously, 88 or something. He had an uncle named William Alexander McCain, graduated from West Point in 1902. His father graduated in 1906. My husband graduated in 1931. My son graduated in 1938, and then there were no military for 2 years after he retired in 81, and then he's been serving his country ever since. The McCain family has tried to serve God and our country. That's the best we can for over 100 years. And I hope that our family continues. I have a grandson in the Marine Corps in Iraq. I have another grandson who's third year at the Naval Academy. One of my nephews, Nelson Willis, was in the Marine Corps. My grandson was a submariner, enlisted man as a It's just, we just love our country. We just want to do anything we can. And we don't want accolades. The prominence that my son has is a surprise to me.
Why?
I just think as I said, we're just middle-level people who try to be good Americans.
What kind of president do you think John McCain would be?
Oh boy, I think he's the answer to many, many problems that we have today.
Because?
He's experienced, he's smart, he has integrity, he wants to serve. There's nothing in it for him. He doesn't need money, he doesn't need prestige. Why else would you go through working 15 to 17 hours, 7 days a week, and be at everyone's beck and call, unless you had something, some drive that I don't have, to serve?
Now, this is a political question in terms of how he gets the nomination. But just from what you have seen, how much support do you think he has among the base of the Republican Party?
And I don't think he has any. I don't know what the base of the Republican, maybe I don't know enough about it, but I've not seen any help whatsoever.
So can he then go on and become the nominee of this party?
Yes, I think Holder than Nose are going to have to take him.
Can you explain?
Well, everything they've done and said. Now, I'm really popping off, but he worked like a dog to get Bush reelected. He's backed Bush in everything except Rumsfeld. Have you ever heard of other senators and congressmen backing Bush over 8 years? Find me, give me a name. And I've never seen any public recognition of the work that he's done for the Republican Party.
As you know, actor Chuck Norris said that he thinks John McCain is too old to be president. And he's supporting Mike Huckabee.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. I think all of these candidates are fine people. And that's just his opinion. And perhaps he's right, but let's take a chance.
But on the age issue, your son talks about you.
Well, of course, he's glad to put me up as what he hopes his lifespan will be.
So what's the secret? You are how old?
Well, in 2 weeks I'll be 96. My father was like 97 or 98 and took care of his business till the day he died, and he walked 5 miles every day until about a month before he died.
And you have a twin sister?
Yes. She's in Los Angeles.
Is she active?
Uh-huh. She's fine.
In his book, Faith of My Fathers, he talks about you. He said, quote, "She was encouraged to accept graciously and with good humor the responsibilities and sacrifices her choices have required of her."
Oh.
What choices were they that required sacrifice? Was it the Navy life?
Well, first place, my husband really liked to work, and he worked hard. So he wasn't always home at 4 and 5 o'clock. Most often he was... You know, I've wondered if I was the kind of person that just goes in and does everything, or whether I was kind of left into that mold by circumstances, because my husband did work and worked hard. And I've found out that in life, there's always number one any place, whether it be a library, whether it be your job, there's only one number one. And my husband was the one that was working, providing us with food and clothing, and was the provider, and so he was number one. And I'm not sorry. I think my children benefited by having a father that if something was needed, he was just number one. I don't know. I'm not a very deep thinker.
But he also said, John McCain, your son, that he's more like you than his father.
Well, he isn't. He's like his father. And I don't think any traits that I have at all he has. I really don't.
None at all?
No. He will not hold a grudge. I kind of like some of mine. I think he has qualities that are wonderful, that he does get along with people. And that was another thing about Jack. There was always harmony where he worked. For instance, in the military, you could have the Air Force trying to one-upsmanship the Navy, or these little feuds. None of that.
What kind of grudges do you have?
Well, I'm collecting a few. Not really.
With any public officials? Any?
No, not one soul. Listen, I'm a lot easier going than I sound.
What do you think John McCain would bring to life in the White House? Would you live in the White House?
No,
what would it mean for his
never.
family? What would it be like if he were in the White House just down the street?
Well, I think it'd be the same way that their house is in Arizona. Their children there all the time, friends all the time. It's a very open thing. I don't know. I know that you work awfully hard, harder than anybody else in the whole world when you're president. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of, I don't know. I certainly don't plan on being a part of it.
How does John McCain make a decision from what you have seen as his mother? What's his process?
Well, in the first place, he is very well read. And he has done a lot of really deep thinking, philosophical thinking. And what'd you ask me?
How does he make a decision?
I think that's one of the things. I think it's through a very great knowledge and a good mind. I listened to him when he's asked these various questions. I'm astounded that he is so well informed and on so many different areas of the world.
You were born in what year?
1912.
And so you've lived a life seeing a lot of presidents and a lot of presidencies.
Yeah.
What does this country need now?
It needs John McCain. And they'll be lucky if they get him. I think they need him. He certainly is a person of integrity. He's knowledgeable, he's experienced. He certainly wants to do the best he can. And I think that's a big asset when someone really mission is to be and do the best they can.
And I want to come back to you and your age at 95. There's a story that you recently traveled to Europe.
Uh-huh.
Too old to rent a car.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened?
I just bought one. I don't know what the laws would have done for me in England, even though I used to live in England. I know you can't get a driver's license, I think, after 75 in England. But they're not going to rent a car to this. It was a year ago, anyway, or two. Might have been 3 years. Anyway, they wouldn't rent me a car, so I bought a Peugeot.
And where's the car today?
No, it's one of those deals where it's you buy it, and then you would, after 3 or 4, ever how long you have it, they buy it back. What it actually really is a rental, but you own the car. And it has advantages because there's 24-hour road service, which a lot of insurance companies, I've never needed road service. By the way, I rented a car on this last time because I had my niece, and she rented it in her name. And wouldn't you know, in a brand new car, we had a flat tire. And guess what it cost? €80. That's $120 to have a tire changed.
Well, I have to ask you, with all due respect, at almost the age of 96, how do you do it? How do you stay young, sharp, vibrant,
I don't
active?
try to stay young. I just happen to be very healthy, and I don't have any aches or pains. If I have like a flu, I'll have it 12 hours. I just, luckily, one of those people, I don't get tired. It's God-given. Of course, growing up in California could have something to do with it. 2 or 3 glasses of fresh orange juice every day. You're outside constantly. You live on nothing but fresh fruit and vegetables. And I always was very athletic.
What do you think your husband would think of his son running for
I
president?
think he'd just be so proud.
And he passed away when?
Pardon me?
Your husband passed away when?
1981 in March.
Under what circumstances?
He died with a heart attack on a plane coming in from, we'd been in Europe for 3 months. And listen, be grateful for what you got and forget what you don't have. And I am so grateful for the life that we had. I can't have a regret. I have nothing but gratitude for what God's given me.
And as you look at this year ahead, what's it like for you to see your son go through the process of running for president? Does it bother you?
If everybody goes well, I thank God for that. And if everything doesn't go well, I understand.
But do you ever call him up and say, you should have done this,
No.
or good job on that?
No. First place, I'm not competent. But the next place, there are people a lot smarter than I am that would tell him. Honey, sons don't want to hear too much advice from their mother.
Last question. Is there one thing about John McCain that the public doesn't know that you think they should know about your son?
No. I think his life is an open book. And that old saying, what you see is what you get, there's no side to him. He just wants to stand there and do the best he can. It's just that simple.
Roberta McCain, thank you very much.
Thank you.